administration claims its sudden war on elite universities like Harvard is all about anti-Semitism. The Wall Street Journal, though, says it goes back farther than that, 2019 to be exact, and that it actually started with a sucker punch to the face. Joining us now, staff writer for The Atlantic, Tom Nichols, MSNBC political analyst and staff writer for The Atlantic, Ashley Parker, and Judge John Jones is still with us. All right, so Ashley, the Wall Street Journal reports that this was an incident that happened on the campus of Berkeley in San Francisco. It was a gentleman who was representing Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's foundation, trying to organize or trying to recruit people to join it. He's on campus. He's not a part of campus, but he's on campus. Somebody comes up, also not a student on campus, and sucker punches him in the face. This suddenly gets elevated to both Fox News and then to Donald Trump. And the idea is born to try to go after universities.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in some ways, it does take place on a college campus and they are trying to recruit students. That's what Turning Point does. But it really has nothing to do beyond that with the university. But it is helpful. And we've seen this a lot with President Trump and the team around him. They have long wanted, conservatives have long been frustrated with what they feel is sort of the over wokeness and DEI issues of elite universities. And it gives them a chance to escalate this in the media and more broadly to go after universities for free speech violations and talk about withholding federal funding. And this happens at the end of President Trump's first term. But another thing, just to understand this in context, which I think is important, is in the 4 years then he is out of power. You have Stephen Miller, who went to Duke, feels very strongly about this, and other conservatives who care a lot about the education space, using those 4 years out of power to come up with creative ways to go after elite institutions. And we are now seeing that come to fruition in incredibly major ways right now.
Tom, as Ashley is saying, that this has been a long-standing complaint among Republicans, that they don't get a fair shake at college campuses, that college campuses are places where people become liberals, they become Democrats, they get more educated because they get more educated by liberal Democrats and then become liberal Democrats. They get indoctrinated.
That's not what a lot of this is about. Look, I was a Republican and I was teaching at an Ivy League campus. I taught at Dartmouth for many years. I taught at Harvard. Some of what's going on the right here, and it's an ugly thing to talk about, but it's status envy. It's feeling like being part of an outgroup. As you pointed out, you have people like Miller who went to Duke. You have Ted Cruz who went to Princeton and Harvard. You have, all of these people, J.D. Vance, who went to Yale, and yet somehow felt like they were part of an outgroup or a disadvantaged group. And this is like kids who are mad at their high school, deciding that they want to become the principal and shut down all the cool kids clubs. I mean, there really is a kind of juvenile envy involved here on the right wing. And you can see it especially in the president, who talks about these, elite schools and how awful they are. But then at every chance he gets, points out, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, I went to Wharton, my uncle taught at MIT. So there is this love-hate relationship with people who hate these elite institutions because some part of them desperately wanted to be accepted by them and wasn't. You notice that they're not going after small boutique schools that are even much farther to the left in terms of their campuses than places like Harvard or Yale, which if anyone who's ever been on any of these campuses knows, yes, they have an immensely liberal group of kids on them, but they also have a lot of really conservative kids who are heading off to Wall Street and other places. They're not going after small liberal arts colleges. They're going after the places that make them feel insecure about themselves. And that psychological condition, I think, unfortunately, is driving a huge part of an attack on really what is a national treasure in the United States or universities.
I think that's a fair point. The pointing out of who they're going after, which colleges and universities they're going after. They're also saying that they're going to go after the UC system. But I wonder, Judge Jones, you're the president of Dickinson College, so you're in a unique perspective or unique position to comment on this. I wonder if there is at just the very bottom of it, a nugget of truth there, or discomfort that many Americans might have been feeling about what they were seeing on college campuses. The idea that, and you tell me if this is totally wrong, the idea that you couldn't debate any longer, that certain topics were off limits, that only certain people could discuss certain things, that it wasn't a free exchange of ideas. It was a place, it has become places where it is my way and my way alone. And if you disagree with this, you're somehow a bigot, you're somehow racist, et cetera.
Well, you know, President Garber at Harvard has said, Katie, that there's a lot of work to be done, and I agree with him. I think over the years, colleges and universities became places that dissent was not looked on favorably. Certainly, there's work being done at every college and university in the United States. But just like the administration overstates the case with the judges, as we just discussed, they overstate the case again with colleges and universities. I had a beautiful commencement here at Dickinson a couple of weeks ago, and I thought about this. You know, if I'd taken the 600 or so individuals who graduated from my school and said to them, you know, you're now super liberals, and you know, go out and toe the line, and you know, that's what you're regarded, they would laugh in my face. That's not what we're turning out here. And, you know, Tom makes a very good point about the boutique universities or colleges like mine, I guess. We haven't been leaned on yet. But I strongly believe that what's happening to Harvard, and they've said this, I think Mr. Miller has said this, it's a warning shot. It's a warning shot to every college and university. They're going to lean on Harvard to the point of almost destruction and say, look, this could be you. This could happen to you. And this is viewpoint. This is who gets taught. This is what gets taught. This is screwing around with college and universities' curriculum, and it flies in the face of the First Amendment and academic freedom.
Yeah, Leo Terrell said this on Fox News. He's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights in the DOJ. He said this is a warning shot. What's happening at Harvard is a warning shot for all colleges. And then he specifically cited the UC system, so that could be coming. But I wonder, Tom, if you want to just weigh in on what I was asking Judge Jones there about whether there was some room to improve on debate in colleges, and whether that is one of the reasons that Donald Trump is able to take it to these extremes, because he takes something that some Americans might identify with, might be uncomfortable with, and then blows it up so big that it becomes a fixation. And he's able then to justify these major, or try to at least justify these major incursions into what are supposed to be private institutions.
Yes, there's room for improvement. No, that's not really a reason why he's doing this. Look, I spent 35 years on college campuses. I could take a camera every day to campus and find kids arguing with each other and put it on television and make the college look awful, both from the right and the left. But colleges do lean left. There's no doubt about it. And I say that as somebody who was a conservative on a campus. To me, there's no argument that colleges, private elite universities, lean left in their faculty and in their student body. But I think the judge is absolutely right that the Trump administration is blowing this up as a wedge issue in society, to say to the MAGA base, who, most people just aren't ever going to interact with these major universities, to say, I'm going after people that really deserve it. I'm going to stick it to people that you don't like. Instead of doing something constructive, which conservatives did do some years ago, to say, listen, we're going to build up other colleges. We're going to put funding into state universities and other places where the children of the working class do go, and make sure that we can make affordable alternatives. If you don't like Harvard, don't apply to Harvard. But this is not what they're doing. What they want to do is take these institutions down because they have an innate resentment of these schools that can't be satisfied really by anything other than just ripping them apart. And that's not really about politics. That's about this particular kind of movement that's now occupying the White House.
All right, Tom Nichols, Ashley Parker, stick around for us. Judge John Jones. So many J's, I keep getting tripped up. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.